welcome to Tobar's Realm. Today I think I'm gonna try to make a T-Rex skull out of scrap 1/8 inch. I've got a pile of random 1/8 inch metal that I think I'm gonna try and make into a scale model of a T-Rex skull. So I just started with some patterns here to try to see where I'm starting. It's pretty close, but I've identified some errors I made with that, and got the lower jaw here. So I think I'll start on the lower jaw and work everything off of that, use it as a reference for all the different shapes and holes through the skull and stuff. So these first pieces I'm gonna cut off this bigger piece of scrap, and then probably the smaller stuff I'll use for this stuff. So I'm gonna get started on that. Alright, just working on one of the jaw pieces here, and I'm just bending over the bottom of it a little bit. I added some extra metal on when I cut the pattern out, so I'm just using this little anvil to work on bending the bottom edge in a little bit. Alright, I got the lower jaw welded together and those bends put in the bottom of it. My idea is to leave the welds because I'm going to be doing the pieces as individual parts of the bones of the skull. So I was kind of thinking of leaving the welds where those bones attach to each other, but we'll find out. So now I'm going to start on the tip of the snout, so I'll get that piece cut out and start working it. Alright, so I got the tip of the nose and the top of the snout piece basically sized up. Now I'm working on like the side here. This is the first one where the metal I'm using isn't big enough for the pattern, so I'm gonna clean these up, weld them together, and make one solid piece out of it before I cut this pattern out of it. Alright, well, this is the progress I made yesterday. We got the jaw done and the beginning of the snout here. So what I need to do is go back and kind of fine-tune this a little. That top pieces are a little too wide, so I need to pull those in. This part is a little too wide, so I'll probably end up kind of adjusting where that comes in, probably around there. And I think I'll bring the tip of this down a little. I wanted it to curve up, but I think it curved a little too much, so I'm going to pull this down. Work on that, and then start on the top of this part up here. Alright, so here's how far I've gotten after day 2. Got these side pieces, top here. I need to keep working this. It's a little too straight and artificial looking. So moving onward to the back, need to get pattern for that part, which is actually where the eyes are. It kind of looks like the eyes there, but it's not. And then I'm a little concerned with the shape I made these pieces. They're too rounded outwards. But I'm going to continue on with this, the forehead, I guess you'd call it. And if things don't go well as far as a T-Rex skull, I will go with a dragon skull, and then I can kind of make it whatever I want. But may have to go back and change these inward. They're too far out. We'll see. Alright, so I ended up just adding a little curve on this piece. I may do a little more just to give it a little bit of interest there. Now working on the forehead piece. I kind of bent these temple pieces a little bit to try and line them up with this pattern. So I guess I need to get some material to cut this out of. Weld these two together. Alright, I got that forehead piece pretty close. I think I'm going to round the edge around the back. I may end up cutting that pointy part off to prepare it for the next piece behind it. So that one wasn't too bad. I don't know why I always have to bend it right where I welded it, so I might have to, I don't know, I can grind it out hopefully. Alright, that forehead piece is basically formed. I ended up cutting that round part off the back, which I added anyway, and I didn't end up liking how it looked, so I cut that off. I'm going to cut these where that line is, and then working on the top of the skull. That's going to be kind of a big flat piece really. And then here's what I'm going to make it out of. This has been oxy welded. So I'm going to cut these apart and re-weld them together and then cut this out of them. Alright, I got that top of the head welded on there. It's pretty close to where I'm going to want it. Now I'm just working on the back side here. That'll go like that. Bend around. So get those cut out. Alright, so I've kind of reached a crossroads here. I think I misshaped these pieces because it's not looking like a T-Rex skull. I think the patterns that I made were correct, or at least close enough, but I bent them incorrectly. The snout needs to be narrower, like narrow at the top and kind of come out more triangular shape. The forehead needs to be flatter and wider in the back. So I'm going to try to salvage what I have here by reshaping it. If that doesn't go well, I'm going to end up having to just make it a dragon skull. My intent was a T-Rex skull, so that's what I'm going to push for. Alright, I've been beating on this thing for a while. It's pretty tough. I didn't realize how hard it would be to bend that dome out of these, but I think I'm on the right track here. Got it straightened out, the brow, widen the eye sockets out, and split a weld right on the line. So I'm gonna get that fixed up, kind of continue refining some of these changes I made, but I think that was a good decision to just go for it. Alright, I got the back of the skull pieces attached. They're still hot. I gotta adjust the angle of it a little bit. This side needs to come in a little, but I'll let that cool beforehand. Now I'm gonna start working on the teeth, and for that I'm gonna use these spikes off of a spiked toothed harrow. So I'm gonna clean them up with the wire wheel first and then figure out how long I'll need to cut them and kind of get them figured out there. So start by cleaning them up. Alright, I got all these cleaned up and sanded down. I'm going to start with the front top there, some of these thinner ones. So I'm going to cut them off and make them flat on the side so when I weld it on there it'll fit in there nicely, and then if I need to make more they'll get thicker and I can use that for the bigger teeth along the sides and stuff. So I'm going to start by cutting these off. Just going to tack them for now and go back and fill it in more once I'm sure it's alright. Alright, I got all the teeth tacked on there for the bottom jaw. Looking pretty intimidating. Last night I had a bunch tacked on the top, but they were a little uneven and I ended up having to resharpen all these spikes I got the original teeth off of. So all the second ones are like thicker and a little bit more robust. So I broke them all loose from the top jaw and used the smaller ones for the bottom jaw. And now I'm going to need to cut these next ones off for the top. Alright, I got all the teeth tacked in there. That thing's looking terrifying. I can't imagine facing one of these in real life. But now I need to add a little bit more in the back of the jaw just to raise that up. So I'm going to figure out exactly how much, just so I can put the hinge part there. So I'm just going to figure out how much I need to add right there. Alright, just working on the hinging mechanism for the jaw. I think I'm going to try welding this piece on the inside of the top. And then I'll drill a hole through the bottom jaw in this. And I'll use this nail, cut it off, drill a hole through it, and use it as a little pin to put through it. I'll put like a cotter pin on the inside to hold it in there. And if that doesn't work, I can always put a bolt. But I'm going to put it a little bit at an angle so that when you rotate it, it'll get a little further away as it opens, just to get enough clearance. I'm going to clean this up, cut it in half, and tack it in there and see if it works. Alright, I got all those welds sanded off. Now I'm going to go back and just put spot welds all the way around all these. And then sand them down again just to give it a little dimension there. Alright, I went around and put little tack welds all around all the holes in there, the edge of the teeth and stuff. That one's too hot to mess with right now, but I'm going to start using the sanding disc and blend that edge into the regular jaw part. Alright, I got the bottom jaw sanded just using the flapper disc. And I went back with a file and got in between all the teeth to try and get that nice and smooth. I might need to do a little more right there, but... And then I've done half of the top part of the skull. And got the teeth done, but I need to go back with the file on that too. So just continue on, flapper, and get this other side. Alright, made good progress sanding down all those welds on the edges of the holes there. That's looking a lot better, I think. Soften up those lines, give it a little dimension. Something I meant to do earlier in this process was to add the hole that goes here, which is, I believe, called the premaxillary fenestra. But anyway, I got to get that, drill a hole in it, use a file to size out the hole, The bottom teeth are all filed along the gum line there, and now I need to go back and do the top ones, but getting into the home stretch here. Alright, I think I'm done with the build process. I got all the teeth filed in between, got those little holes added there. Everything's looking good. So I think now it's time to heat this up with the weed burner, spray it with WD-40, put a nice bluing and a patina on this, and call it done. So I'm going to do that now. Alright, all done. That was a pretty challenging build, but enjoyable. Made from well, I guess entirely of scrap stuff. Thanks for watching. Till next time.